Overnight, a deadly shooting in Washington, D.C.
Tonight, a heinous crime was committed.
A gunman opening fire at the Capitol Jewish Museum, killing 2 staff members of the Israeli embassy. New video showing the suspect being detained, shouting pro-Palestinian messages.
Free Palestine!
Police say the shooting happened shortly after 9 p.m. at a museum event hosted by the American Jewish Committee.
The suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire.
The suspect, identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago, then entered the museum and was detained by event security, according to authorities. Israel identifying the victims as Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram, a young couple who are about to become engaged.
The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. They were a beautiful couple who came to enjoy an evening in Washington's Cultural Center.
Reaction coming from around the world this morning. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu increasing security at Israeli missions and saying, quote, "My heart grieves for the families of the young beloveds." President Trump writing, "These horrible D.C. killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA," while the community mourns.
We are a resilient people. The people of Israel are resilient people, and the people of the United States of America are resilient people.
And as we mentioned, that suspect is still in custody. At this point, charges have not been filed. That young couple, both staffers at the Israeli embassy here in Washington, D.C., and one of them, Sarah Milgram, had posted on her professional LinkedIn page that her goal was to work at the intersection of peace building and had a long-term effort to try and find religious harmony.
Boy, heartbreaking and senseless again, and that is where we're going to start this morning with that shocking news from Washington that you're waking up to. Last night, 2 Israeli embassy staff members were shot and killed as they left an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum. Now, video from the scene shows the arrest of a man who appears to be the shooter. The victims have been identified as a young couple who were set to be engaged. They were killed right across the street from an FBI field office and less than a mile from the U.S. Capitol. Scott McFarland is near the scene right now. Scott, good morning. I know that this is a very fluid situation right now, but what can you tell us so far?
Hey, Gail, the Capitol Jewish Museum is that smaller brick building behind me, if you look closely at your screen. And that police tape is hanging from the side of the Washington, D.C. FBI field office. That's how high security an area this is. We are steps away from the Justice Department, from the D.C. police headquarters, from the U.S. Capitol. This was nevertheless the scene of a targeted attack last night.
Tonight, a heinous crime was committed.
A fatal shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night. Law enforcement says prior to the attack, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside the museum.
He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security.
This morning, the Israeli Foreign Ministry named the 2 victims as Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, embassy staff workers in Washington.
The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem.
The suspect, who's now in custody, was identified by police as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. The FBI says it's investigating ties to potential terrorism and his motivation.
The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
Witnesses say Rodriguez was with them inside the museum after the shooting before they realized who he was.
So about 10 minutes later, when the cops actually came in, he said, "I did this." He said, "Sir, I'm unarmed." He put his hands up, he grabbed a red kufi out of his pocket and started the Free Palestine chants.
President Trump responded to the shooting, posting, "These horrible D.C. killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end," adding, "Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA." Trump contacted Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was with the Israeli ambassador.
Together with President Trump, our Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will stand together tall and firm, and we will confront this moral depravity without fear and with determination.
Israel's prime minister says they are strengthening security arrangements at their posts at their Israeli government facilities across the globe. An initial search by law enforcement did not show anything about Elias Rodriguez. We expect to hear from law enforcement again later this morning.